Well, everybody knows the Zimbabwean voice now, so that's for sure. And it's a beautiful voice, that one. One of unity, one of togetherness, one of peace, one of love, you know. That's the way forward. Oga, Oga.
So, Tadzie, thanks so much for joining. I appreciate your time and for doing this. How have you been?
I've been good. I've been busy. There's a lot of things going on. It's a very busy period for me personally and also for the organization that I run. But otherwise, I'm good.
Okay. And I know that when we were speaking over WhatsApp recently, you said you were in the US, flying into Harare. What are we up to out there, you know? And well, what are we up to?
Okay, so I work for an international organization called All Hands on Hearts. And it's an organization that focuses on helping community, well, it partners with communities and volunteers, you know, to help them to get themselves back on their feet after a disaster takes place. So I usually travel to the US to support with the work. I am part of their leadership team. I'm the chief marketing officer. So in that role, I usually work with the teams very closely, especially in trying to put together their stories and also just working together with the rest of the leadership team.
Got you. And how does it?
Yeah.
Because a lot of us that are we have one foot in Zimbabwe and one foot abroad. How do you find managing? Of course, I know you work for All Hands on Hearts, but then of course you have your own organization, which we're going to touch on today, called Ignite Youth. How has it been straddling both, entities, if I can call them that?
Well, it definitely comes with its own challenges. But I think, in a nutshell, both of these organizations mean a lot to me in different ways and also in similar ways. So both of them, they really represent the kind of work that I love doing, which is purpose-driven work, where I'm working for organizations that help me to get a sense of fulfillment in my life, that I'm helping communities, I'm helping people. I feel like I am contributing and making a difference. So that is something that I have always wanted to do. So it's in different ways, but it is something that I really enjoy. And so I think both of them, they both focus on working with local people, ordinary people, to some extent, to help them to make a change. And Ignite focuses on working with young people and helping them to lead purposeful lives, but so that they can also make a difference. And All Hands on Hearts works with volunteers so that they can make a difference in communities that have been affected by disasters.
Nice.
So for me, they're different, but they're also similar in some way. And I do manage because with Ignite, I have a team of young people that help me out with a lot of the admin and logistical work, especially during the week. And then on the weekends, I get to do some other work for Ignite. And then with All Hands on Hearts, it's weekdays, so I just entirely focus on that.
Okay.
And so that's how I balance my schedule.
Okay. I think that was the main reason why I wanted to talk to you. I think I was doing my research, and of course, purpose kept coming up. It kept jumping at the screen whenever I was doing my digging, and I think even part of me doing this podcast, I think I had a bit of like a existential crisis last year, where it's like, purpose became a very meaningful thing for me. It's like, why do we wake up in the morning? What is the reason why we do everything that we do? And I think sometimes if there's no purpose, it can be it can be easy to feel like a rudderless ship, or you just kind of meander and go from A to Z. So I think the question I have for you is, what was the purpose behind you leaning into purpose and starting, Ignite Youth?
All right. So with Ignite Youth Organization, I would say that it really came from my background, because I grew up in a single parent household,
Mm,
and my father died of diabetes when I was only 5 years old.
mm,
So I grew up looking up to my mom because she took care of me and my
mm,
siblings, and she was really good at what she did. She was a seamstress,
mm,
and she made sure that we got everything that we needed.
mhm.
Um, but I think, as you might, I don't know if you know much about single moms, but single parents in general will do anything they can to make sure that their children have everything they need, which means that they're most or more often than not busy
Mhm.
people, right? They're busy. That was the same case with my mom. She was pretty much busy.
Mm.
And I could see the long hours that she was clocking as she was playing two roles, literally.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and I started facing some challenges as a young person growing up. As a teenager, there were certain challenges that I started facing, and I wasn't sure. I actually felt like if I was to raise these issues to my mom, I would be disturbing her, or I didn't want to disturb her and take her away from her main focus, which was on providing for us as a children.
Hmm.
So it really affected me, like in terms of when I faced challenges in my personal life as a teenager. Like I didn't feel like I had somebody that I could talk to. I was quite confused.
Mm,
I knew that I wanted to make my mom proud because I could see how much she was working,
mm,
but in terms of clear direction, I wasn't sure because I didn't fit into any of the I didn't feel like I was fitting into any of the boxes that were standardized at school, like arts, sciences, and commercials, because
mm,
I was one of those people that usually was always interactive in debate. I was good at actually painting and drawing,
mm.
but I was also good in the arts, like the art subject. So I wasn't really sure. Everyone was like, you should do law,
Why does
but
everyone
I
always
wasn't
get
really
pushed into
sure.
law? Why is everyone?
Yeah, so it looks like these are like the cookie cutter,
Yeah, yeah,
the cookie, yeah. So
yeah,
it's like this is like how career guidance is usually structured in schools,
yeah.
right? If
Mm.
you're doing arts, you go into law. If you do sciences, go and become a doctor or engineer.
If
So
you like maths, you do
it's
accounting, or
it
if
was
you do like maths, you go into accounting.
exactly
That kind of.
exactly. So
Mm,
they were all these. I was clueless, right? And I was trying to find a path that was unique to me, based on my unique, because I had all these gifts and talents, and I didn't know, like, how am I supposed to use these gifts together for a career.
mm, mm.
So I had a lot of conflicting thoughts. I wanted to make my mom proud. I had a lot of confusion. There were a lot of voices, internal and externally. Um, I didn't know what kind of a career I was going to choose. That would make my mom proud, but at the same time that I'm passionate about. What kind of career was that going to be? But then I ended up taking a year to do fine arts. I did a year in fine art, and then after fine art, I did graphic
Mm-hmm,
design, and I started working for a number of advertising
mm-hmm.
agencies. Um, I was still confused, but I knew that I wanted to do something that helps to impact communities and helps me to engage with people and helping people. But then I was really good at art, at graphic design, at marketing. And so funny enough, I was doing graphic design and actually rising up in that sector
Yes.
up to the level of creative director.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I was studying a degree in international relations. So you can see how confused I
Your
was.
what was the thing?
I
And
knew what.
right, we're trying to make your
Mhm.
mom happy, like trying to make people happy with the international relations.
Exactly.
Mm,
Exactly. Yeah.
mm,
So I was like really confused. It was just an internal void, right? I was someone who loved to interact with people, provide inspiration, give back positively. So it was really like a very confusing time for me. So, I mean, I think what ended up helping me was that after being in the industry, in the advertising industry for a while, I just felt this void. And I said, I've always wanted to do impact related work. Let me shift over and work in the nonprofit sector. That way I can use my skills in design and marketing and creative work and all that, and use that in the nonprofit sector instead of the corporate sector. So then I got a job with a Swedish based organization,
mm.
and I started working as their regional communications manager, and later on I became the global communications manager. So, I mean, in all of this, I think God was literally preparing me. I feel like um, I still had this void inside of me, and the funny thing is that my pastor was used to say to me that you need to, she used to say to me that you're really called to work with young people. Um, and that really used to resonate a lot with me. But I was like, how am I going to work with young people when I'm good at
I'm
graphic?
doing
Like, where's
graphic.
the
Where's
link
the
between
graphic design? Like,
design?
how?
Yeah,
Where?
where does the
Right.
design, the marketing side come
Right.
into? So it was really difficult for me. But then what happened is I started praying about it, and I got an opportunity to apply to the Mandela Washington Fellowship. I applied to the Mandela Washington Fellowship with Ignite lead as the lead. Initially, it was with the organization I was working for, but I didn't get accepted. It was only after I applied using Ignite that I got in. And I think it's a very unique model, right? Helping young people to pursue purpose-driven lives. And secondly, I think it's because I started trusting God more that, this is what He wants me to do. He wants me to focus on helping young people. So that was a confirmation for me that I should proceed and work with young people. And that's when I started Ignite. And it was because I was coming from a place of knowing how it feels like to not have direction, because I lost like a good decade of my life trying to figure out what it
What I
is
want to
that
do.
I want, what I wanted to do. So I was like, if I had had someone who had sat down with me and given me like some kind of direction in terms of where I want to go, then it would have been easier for me. And the question that I had to do some internal work, and the question that I asked myself is, how would I have approached if I was if I was the older version of me talking to the younger version of Tadzie at school or whatever, what was I going to tell her? And for me, it would have been, what do you want to be remembered for? What is the thing that you want to be remembered for in your life? And that question would have made everything else fall in place for me easier, right? Because I felt like the challenge is that I started focusing on my skills and not necessarily my purpose and what I'm supposed to do in life. I started focusing on what I'm good at. So I thought to myself, if someone had asked me, what do you want to be remembered for? What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? I definitely was going to immediately know that I want to help young people. I want to make a difference in young people's lives, right? And I want to interact. I want to be in the community. I want to be making that difference. Because I didn't get anyone to ask me their question, I focused more on my skills rather than my. And most young people get confused at that stage where it's like, I'm good at this, but what you're good at and what you're called to do are two different things. And for me, what I later on discovered is that my skills in graphic design and everything else have really helped me out. They've helped me in pursuing my purpose tremendously. Like all the marketing that happens at Ignite, it's me who drives that. And I'm very much well versed in how to get the word out there about the organization. And that's a skill I have. But the skill helps with the purpose in
Right.
helping you pursue your purpose.
Right.
So, but it's not the purpose in itself, right? So sometimes you can get stuck on the skill and think that's what you're called to do. I could have just continued for the rest of my life thinking I'm called to marketing, but
Right.
marketing is a
It's a
tool
it's a
I use.
tool. It's a tool.
It's a tool I use, yeah, to get me to my purpose, which is to help young people. And even now, with the work that I'm doing with All Hands on Hearts, it's a tool I use to help communities to to recover from disasters and things like that. It's a tool. So there should always be an ultimate. What is the big picture, right? So I feel like if I had you know, had been asked that question and someone had really guided me through properly, I would have been able to say, I'm very good at interacting. I'm very good at influencing um, other people to behave in a certain way. In fact, in high school, I was extremely notorious, extremely notorious. I, my name was actually on the noisiest people in the school. Um, and I was very good at influencing other people to act in a certain way and go in a certain direction. If it was more of like we're not going to go for detention, I'd be able to influence others to say we're not going. And it's like if I had found someone who had said, she actually
She's quite
has,
influential.
we need
You
to,
just guide. You just
yeah,
have to
she's like,
guide it a little bit.
yeah, we need to change that. Yeah, we need to actually use that for a positive
Mm,
impact.
mm, mm,
Then someone will say because of this, she's going to be able. You can use your ability to influence others to actually make a difference in young people's
mm,
lives. You can use your design and love for arts and everything to create content and material for your organization.
mm,
So then it's like your skills are going to help you with where you're going, not that you're going to be a designer or a creative manager or a marketing manager for the rest of your life,
mm,
but rather that you're going towards this goal,
mm,
but you're going to use these skills that God has given you. So I always say that when we look at God, right, he's so like he's so multi-talented, he's got so many things that he's able to do. And obviously if he was going to create human beings, he was never going to put us in a box where if
yes.
you're just going to be good at sciences,
Yes.
you're just going to be good at, never,
Yes.
because he's an artist, he's a
He's a
scientist,
story.
he's
He's a
everything.
storyteller. He's a creator. All of
Everything.
these things. Mm,
Exactly. So for me, I was like, if God is so much like that,
mm,
how can he possibly not have given us, also made us multi-talented like that?
mm,
So it's looking at the talents that he did give us and taking all of that
mm,
and then using that to push whatever purpose that he's given you in your life. And so it was only later on in life that I discovered that, but I felt like it was because I started work, volunteering and working in the church, and then that's when my pastor started talking to me and saying, I feel like this is the direction you should go. And so I would say that where the help came in for me was a mentor. When I found a mentor
mm,
who could speak to me and say, we're noticing this, we're noticing that about you, then that's when I started saying, yeah, I've always had this passion, but
mm,
I've always been very fearful of how I can go about
mm,
this because I thought that I wasn't able to do it.
mm,
But I think having a mentor is what made a difference for me because obviously my mom is still an amazing role model
mm,
for me and she's an amazing mentor.
mm,
But when I was young, I was afraid of approaching her, right? And I can imagine like there are a lot of young people out there that probably feel that way towards their parents, right? They want to talk to them, they want to share what's going on, but especially if the parent is busy,
mm.
well, especially when we look at Zimbabwe, the economic
Survival.
situation has
That's survival.
yeah, it's forced, yeah,
Mm,
it's forced many parents to concentrate mainly on making sure that their children are fed and sheltered.
mm,
So what ends up happening is that unintentionally some parents may overlook other aspects of their child's life that need
mm,
attention, like that psychosocial support and guidance or whatever.
mm.
So that's where my passion came from when it comes to starting Ignite.
That's brilliant. That's phenomenal, and I'm glad you did it. I think I had two questions. My first question is, what gave you because you had spent, all these years building up skills and doing those things, doing international relations, all these other things, trying to make people happy or to be perceived as a particular way, right? It takes a lot of
Mm-hmm.
confidence or courage to then say, you know what, like this is fine, but it takes a lot of bravery also to then take the leap. What was there a moment that you said, you know what, like if I don't do this, I'll be miserable forever? What was the moment that triggered that decision, if at all?
Yeah, there was definitely a moment. For me, it was after I'd worked for 8 years in the advertising sector,
Mm,
I was just so empty.
mm,
I just could not do it anymore. And the funny thing is, I was doing so well. I had gone, as I said, I had like really grown in my role from just a designer to now a creative manager. I was overseeing the department. I was really good at dealing with customer relations, and I kept escalating and growing. But I felt like, okay, now I'm creative director. Where to from here?
mm,
And then secondly, it was like, so I'm going to continue marketing and selling these products for people, but I felt empty,
mm.
and I was just like, this is not exciting for me anymore. All of a sudden trying to make toothpaste sound sexy was like not wasn't the fun thing to do, you know.
You're
It
like, I
was.
mean, like, how many times can I do that?
I don't want to do it anymore.
Mm,
I was just like, you know what, I'm just empty.
mm,
So I started shifting. I started shifting, and I was like, no, I have to move from this sector maybe to a to an impact focused sort of sector, and nonprofit was what I thought I needed. So
mm,
yes, it was what I needed, right? I did interact, and I did start working with people that are in communities, and actually I started feeling more fulfilled. But there was still something else missing, right? It felt like it's not my vision, right? It's
mm,
not my personal vision. I'm
mm.
pushing my organization's vision. I'm like, where's my vision,
Yeah,
right? And I still
yes.
believe 100% in what I'm doing. I still believe 100% in the work that I do, the organization I am with, such that right now I absolutely love the work. It just synchronizes so well and fits in so well, so simultaneously with what I already do.
Mm,
But it was like I love working with young people, like directly working with
mm.
them. So, and also I feel like there was a gap for me because I was working remotely, right? So I was disconnected from. I would have to travel for me to
With
connect
your
with the
team,
work.
yeah.
Um, so it was like, yes, I'm doing it, but I'm working remotely, and I have to travel for me to actually connect with the communities, etc. So it was important for me to get a sense of fulfillment of working and interacting, because that interaction part is really critical for me.
Mm,
And so Ignite came into the picture. And for me, it was like, this is exactly what I love to do. And it just fit in so well with my own personal struggles, right? With what I had gone through and my own struggles, trying to find a path in my life of which direction am I supposed to
Did
go.
you have fear?
So it was,
Did you have any fear?
oh, I was scared. I was scared for like shifting from corporate to nonprofit because I knew nothing about nonprofit work, right? I didn't know because in nonprofit, it's not really marketing, it's more of
Mm.
communications, which is a different type of because it's storytelling,
Storytelling, not
right?
copyright. It's not copywriting. It's like storytelling.
Exactly. It's public
Mm,
relations. It's not selling, it's
mm,
engagement. It's building community.
mm,
So it was a different ball game for me entirely. And to make it even more interesting, I got like a regional role. I didn't even start with a country role. They gave me a regional role for the whole of Africa.
mm,
And um and so for me it was learning as I go.
mm.
Literally I faked it until I made it for that role because I knew nothing about nonprofits. I was trying to take the skills that I knew in the corporate sector to apply to the nonprofit. But and there were definitely some things that were good, like the marketing is really
Mm,
good for nonprofit and advertising.
mm,
But then storytelling is everything in
mhm,
nonprofit work,
mhm,
right? So you have to be able to tell your story. You have to be able to engage the public relations, journalists, and etc.
mm,
It's a different type of um, it's a different type of
mm,
marketing. So yes, I was scared, but I still went into it, and I learned as I went along. And now I think I spent 7 years working for Reach for Change, and after 7 years of working for Reach for Change, that's when I got the job with All Hands on
mm,
Hearts, and I was so happy with the All Hands on Hearts job because I could relate with what they're doing with working with volunteers, because here in Zimbabwe I was working with young people and encouraging them to make a difference, going to their communities,
mm.
volunteer, servant leadership, etc. So it resonated a lot with me because volunteerism is a good way of someone finding their purpose, right? When you
Yes,
go out into communities,
yes.
you're helping out other people. That's how you discover what you love doing in life.
Mm,
So for me, it fits in very well with my own personal vision as well.
mm. Love that. And then when I was doing my reading. There's something you said. You said purpose is an abstract concept in our culture. It's very
Yeah.
abstract. You're almost, and I think part of the reason why I think of that is because there's a lot of, if you look at our history, we're almost the first generation, at least young people. It's like we just born free. Your main job, in fact, our parents' generation is like we just got out, and we just want you to do the things that we couldn't do when you were eight, when we were your age, basically. So be safe.
Yeah.
If you try and take too many risks, it becomes a bit like daunting or frustrating to them to be like, why would you want to paint for a living after all that we've been through to get, you know what I mean? Um, what
Exactly.
gave you okay, I know what drove it, but when you're asking a lot of these kids that you work with Ignite, what do you want to be, what do you want people to say about you? What are some of the answers that you hear? from some of the children.
So, I mean, I feel like it's for many of them, especially the A students. Believe you me, you'll be surprised how many straight A students we have at Ignite. So the shocking thing is many people think that it's actually the average, academically average kids that are going to join Ignite. It's mostly the straight A students. And it was like an aha moment for me because I was like, why is it that the straight A students feel like they need to be having this conversation? It's because their pathway is kind of really already
Yeah.
determined, right? You're good at sciences, you're good at whatever. You're gonna be an engineer, you're gonna be a doctor. So they never really get an opportunity to say what they feel they want to do.
Yeah, because they've already been
So
pushed. They're being pushed already.
they're already being pushed. Yeah. So I mean, I think the straight A students, they are the ones that feel like I was talking to one of them and they were like, it's because like literally, like she said she's studying medicine and she said that the minute I say that I'm studying medicine, nobody wants to hang around me,
Really?
right? Nobody. They're like, oh yeah, like she's like people always like she's no fun. These are the bookworms. These are the people that don't want to go to have fun. These are the people that are always so. She's like, I literally spent my life being painted in this way, and I'm trying to be seen in a different way, like not just like this nerd, but as a person, as an individual, to be accepted in society. That I also want to go out. I also want to have fun with friends. I don't want people to just when they see me, what they see is a doctor. I want them to see a human being. So she was like, I'm so stereotyped. The minute I say that, they're like, oh, these are the brainy ones, and so forth. So I realized that as we're working with our young people, that it's not just the average ones. Yes, the average ones as well. They also struggle because I think
And we say average academically.
you can
Average academically.
academically.
Right.
Yeah, you might not be good academically, but you're definitely good in something in life,
Yeah.
right? So but our society sort of like puts you makes the academics the most important thing. So when I talk to them, for them, they're coming from families, especially those that are straight A's. They're coming from families it's like high achievers. They're full of high achievers in the whole family, so they're expected to achieve and maybe become a doctor, engineer. Like in our family, everybody becomes a doctor. Everybody. So if the minute you want to move and do something different, there's a problem because everyone in this family has done sciences. Everyone in this family has done commercials. So it becomes difficult for a child to find their own path. So how we've started it, we usually start with the youth themselves because what I always say is that based on my own personal story is that as long as you're living under your parents' roof, you have to do what your parent wants you to do, right?
Yep.
What I do know is that it's never too late in life for you to pursue and do what you want to do. So because I'm a Christian, I believe that, you have to obey your parents.
Yep.
Obey them. It's difficult, yes, because you have your vision and whatnot. But as long as they are paying your bills, taking care of you, doing everything for you, if they don't want you to study something, unfortunately you cannot study. You can't go against your parents, right? Because they're the ones who take care of you. But what I do know is that no matter how long it takes for you to start your purpose, whenever you start it, right, it will work out whichever case. Whether you start it 10 years later, 20 years later, or whatever, it will always. So what I always encourage them, and I tell them from my own personal story, that I didn't start it in high school. I didn't start it right after high school. I started it like, I think it was almost like 10 to 15 years after high school. So I'm still doing it, right? So I always tell them that those challenges, every challenge that you face on your journey to pursuing your purpose is supposed to help to strengthen you for the work that you have been assigned to do. Because I can't talk from experience if I'm not going through it. If I cannot say I also had to obey my mom, and I also, then they can't relate. But now they can relate because they can say Tadzie went through it. And so for me, I'm not telling them to be rebellious and not go against their parents, but I'm telling them that if you tell your parent that this is what you feel your vision, if you have that kind of a relationship and you feel you can tell your parent that this is what I feel I want to do, and they can listen, that's good. Share it early on. The earlier you can start, the better. But if you feel like this is not going to be accepted, do whatever it is that they want you to do. It's going to be hard. Yes, but just to know that in honoring your parents, God has seen that and is going to recognize that. And then eventually, the opportunity will come up for you to really pursue it. And when it does, nothing can hold you back. Because as long as you're an independent person and now you're an adult, you're taking care of your own bills, you can make your own decisions. You can explain to them that this is what I've always wanted to do. And now you no longer answer to your parents because you're an adult, right? And now you can make your own decisions. So with that in mind, they always think that yes, and I think also they try to engage to get their parents involved in what we do. So what I do is I engage parents who love what Ignite does. So we do have parents that are like, oh my goodness, I didn't know what I was going to do with my child. I just felt like, this if my child is not good in the academics, what is my child going to do? And then, you came in and you sat with my child and you helped them to map out their skills and whatever and to think about what they want to be remembered for. And now they seem to have a really big passion and hunger and desire to go for what they want to do. So I think that those parents are the ones whose testimonials I use to encourage other parents to say, look at, and I use like two different types of parents, right? So I use parents that like who have straight A students and parents who have average students. But obviously, it's the parents that have academically average that always appreciate Ignite more than the parents that have students that have
Yeah,
I
it's
think
like
you already know why.
yeah, no.
Because we're seen as the enemy, literally. Like you're coming in and changing my child's direction.
You're
My
messing
child
up
is
the
good.
pathway. You're messing up the pathway.
Exactly. My child is good in school. Before Ignite came, my child knew that she was going to do sciences. Now she's telling me that she wants to run an organization and this and that, she's good with the sciences, but she's going to see how she can fit in what she's good at. And it's like you're seen as the enemy. You've come to
Yes,
ruin my child,
yes,
So
yes.
we always respect if the parent decides that the child has to be pulled out of the program. We always tell the parents that we're not encouraging them to drop out of school. We're not encouraging them to stop their studies. We're just helping them to map out their vision and what they want to do in life. And we also have to do those parent workshops where we tell them why it's important for them to not have not to have that kind of a view about their child's life. Some parents get it, some don't, but that's the nature of the work, right? All we can do is hope for the best and pray for these young people so that eventually, they'll still be able to do what they've always wanted to do.
It's funny because I've interviewed a couple of people around this exact topic and people who've followed unconventional paths, whether it's motorsport or rugby or other sports,
Yeah.
they wouldn't have been able to gotten where they went to without parents seeing some sort of like this flame in their child to want to pursue this particular path. And I think I love the name Ignite because literally those parents are the ones who fanned the kids' flame. They fanned the flame, fanned the flame. Now, of course, now those kids are with great sacrifice and hard work, of course, have become in those particular arenas. But I like that you're being very honest about the work isn't just on the kids. Because sometimes I was saying to someone, kids can believe, but if parents don't believe, sometimes dreams get stifled very early in the infancy, and then and then everyone's miserable at the end of the day. The children miserable, the parents, and there's this, you know what I mean? And then everyone just butts heads, and no one wins.
Yeah, and it's sad. They're really miserable. Like you can see that, this person is miserable. So you asked one question about when I asked, for example, there was this girl who was very good at sciences. So when I asked her, like, what do you want to be remembered for? She was like, I've never thought about it that way. In my whole life, I've always focused on what I'm good at, like school, that I'm good at school, academics, and then I'm going to just do something like sciences or whatever. But in terms of what I want to be remembered for, I've never thought of it. So I said, this is your opportunity and this is your chance to think about it. So she had some time to think about it. And then she was like, before you asked me that question, all I wanted to do was to be a doctor. But now after reflecting, I see that I actually want to start a hospital, like a pediatric hospital in a rural community for kids who don't get access to those services. And she's like, I would like to be remembered as someone who brought those services to a rural community. And I was like, you see, now that's different from just being a doctor,
So
from just
broader.
waking up, going to work every day and coming back. And she was like, yes, but I wouldn't have ever thought about it because I actually love working with children. And I didn't know like where exactly I could fit in because no one has ever really helped me to tie in the two things and make me think about it in that way. And then I was like, yeah, and you love to work with children, but not just children. You have a specific group of children that you're thinking about. And these children are children from rural areas who are not going to get help and support and all that. And and then she said, yeah, exactly, because she also grew up with a single mom, and she tied in her own story of how she grew up, how difficult it was growing up, how when they were sick there was no access to medication and all that, and how she tied that all into her vision and what she wanted to do. So for me, it's always good and for most of them, the funny thing is when you do ask them what do you want to be remembered for, no one ever says they want to be remembered for being a billionaire. No one ever says that. It's crazy because every single time I do this exercise, it's not like I lead them towards any specific answer, but everyone says I want to be remembered for coming up with a solution to malaria. It's killing too many people. I want to be remembered for building a school. I want to be remembered for changing the education system. And I'm like, usually ask them, have you guys noticed that no one said that they want to be remembered for being extremely rich and having lots of cars and whatever? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that if that's what you want. But the funny thing is what the answers that people give are usually related towards some kind of higher good, like of making a difference, being remembered for making some kind of a change in society, and changing something in the system that is not working well. So that in itself really like shows that purpose in itself, it's really something that's birthed within us.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's something that has got a lot of meaning and carries that aspect of fulfillment, and somehow we've linked materialism to fulfillment, and that's not where the fulfillment comes from. We work hard so that we can earn those things because we think we're going to be fulfilled. But when we talk about what we want to be remembered for, it's nothing inclined to materialistic things. Our fulfillment doesn't lie in that. It lies in our work and what we're called to do.
Yeah, and even the people that go and make the mind that no one is even like the billions and the billions, they'll give it away anyway at the end. They always give it away anyway at the end. They say, oh, now I want to help. So it's like, geez, clearly, why wait to make $1 billion to be able to change people's lives when you can just do it in the beginning?
Exactly.
With regards to sorry, continue.
I think it's like actually a good thing to to be able to support to be able to support people because you're rich. So I think that
100%.
there's nothing wrong with being rich,
100%.
But I think it's like we always think that being rich is what in itself is what brings fulfillment. So it's good to hear like what you're saying, that it's what you do with the money once you have it.
To get into like the nuts and bolts of like the programming, so we've known, of course, you had your journey, you had your 10 years that you were deciding, should I do this? You did it. In terms of the different programming, from what I was seeing, I think you broke it into 3 broad categories. You said there's Ignite Lifeline, Ignite Hope, and then there's Ignite Mentorship. Maybe unpack those 3 categories for us.
Okay. So I looked at those 3 were really based on my own personal experiences growing up as well. So I was thinking, what are the needs? So obviously, a young person's life is we need to have a 360 approach to how we help young people. And the Lifeline one is a mental health one because, when we're talking about purpose, it's difficult to start talking about purpose with young people when they're going through so many other emotional challenges, right? So already they've given up on life. They're not even interested in hearing what about purpose. Some of them are even having suicidal thoughts. They're going through the worst emotionally. Maybe things are not going well at home or whatever they're experiencing. And so starting with the conversation on purpose and what you want to be remembered for is not a good starting point, right? So it's almost like when the young person joins, we do start with what the organization is, but we quickly, after our first quarter of introducing what we do, we quickly move into the mental health aspect, which is what we are moving into this month, which is 100% now. For the rest of this year, we're going to be focusing on a young person's mental health, because mental health, if your mental health is not okay, you're not going to be able to pursue your purpose,
Yeah.
because your mental health is what strengthens you to pursue it, right? Where you're at mentally. So if you're not okay mentally, it can affect even it has nothing to do even with purpose. Generally in life,
In life, yeah.
yeah, if you're not okay mentally, you're functioning, the way you function in general is not that great. So we try to make sure they're in a mentally good place, that they are getting the mental health support that they need, so that they are actually feeling that they're being supported, and etc. So that's the Lifeline program. Then there's the Hope program. So the Hope program is all about volunteering, servant leadership, civic engagement, going into communities, because through volunteering, that's where they also find what they love doing, right? So when we're talking about purpose, it's important for them to know that you can't just, sometimes it's not obvious, right? Sometimes it's not that obvious that this is what I love to do. Sometimes it's through being a part of other initiatives, volunteering, and so forth, joining memberships for other organizations and initiatives. That's where you find what you love. But if you just like close yourself in and don't work with other groups and other organizations and network, you're never going to know what you really love. It's through being a part of various initiatives, projects, etc., that you're like, you know what, I actually think I love doing this. I think this is what I feel called to do. Or most of the times, even if we go, even like, let's say, to any place whether it's an orphanage or even an animal sanctuary, some of them are like, oh my goodness, I was so touched by seeing these animals, that are being mistreated, and I really want to come up with some kind of a sanctuary for animals. So it's through those kind of activities that they get to see which direction they want to go, but also they connect with a higher purpose, a higher meaning for their lives that goes beyond just every day. Like, when they go into those communities, whatever challenges they're facing personally, economically, socially, and etc., it sort of helps to take their mind off that, and helps them to see themselves as people that are bringing, like, change makers, like
Yeah.
people that can bring a positive impact. So they're actually overcoming that victim mentality of like,
Victim mentality, that you have agency. You give agency.
yeah, yeah. Now they actually feel like they're not just victims, but they're people that can actually make a difference, that they can make a change. So that's why we have the Hope program. And the last one is mentorship, which is that, they need mentors. I had to get a mentor, for me to be able to see where I needed to improve. So mentorship is group mentorship and then individual mentorship. And then we have it in stages. So the first mentorship is the mental health one, which is really needs based. It's a needs based approach. It's not a one size fits all type of approach,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
each young person's needs are unique to a young person. So we don't know how long the counseling is going to take, right? So one young person might be okay in a week after talking to a counselor, but another one it's 2 years, right, of
Yeah.
dealing with the same issue. It's a deeply rooted issue, and also we are particular about which. So, for example, if it's a small issue, well, no, we can't call it really a small issue, but it goes with what the issue is. So if it's an issue, for example, like, let's say, um, time management, or they're failing to manage
Yes.
their time,
Right.
you know,
Right.
that's something that they can work on maybe in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Maybe they get some training, and then now they just need to execute. But then let's say it's a deep issue, like, for example, maybe they went through sexual harassment or
Yes.
something of that
Yes.
sort.
Yes.
That's not something that can be solved in 2 weeks, right? So you're looking for a different type of mentor for that. Like, you're looking for a mentor that, like, is maybe not even just like a counselor, maybe like a certificate or something. You're looking at a psychologist who has studied, maybe who has done it for, maybe who has been doing this work for like 4 or 5 years.
Who's a
Because,
professional?
yeah, a professional, because we don't want to risk their mental, this, when it comes to mental health, it's a very sensitive issue. So as much as possible, we try to assess what kind of mentor or mental health counselor we're going to assign to each young person. And in some instances, it's just a group training. So if it's a time management issue or whatever, which is not really a mental health issue, then that's a group training, right? Um, if it's for example, I went through a heartbreak, and many young people are going through heartbreaks these days.
Hey, listen. Listen. At that
No,
age,
because
it's a big deal.
it's the
But
age of
at
dating,
any age,
you know.
heartbreak is a big deal.
Yes, any age, heartbreaks are happening. So you want to help them. So you're like, okay, let me try and we can try
Yeah.
and do one-on-one. We can try and seeing with how severe the situation is,
Mm.
one-on-one. But if it's something where it's quite a number of them that are talking about, I'm going through a heartbreak or whatever, then maybe we can do a group session. So it just goes with the needs that are coming in, and that's how we help them. So the mentorship,
Mm.
as there's a mental health mentor, then there's a peer mentor. We pair them with peer mentors, someone who's their age, wants to do something similar to what they want to do, so that they can sort of encourage one another along that journey. We
Mm-hmm.
then we pair them with a professional mentor, um, who is someone who is in their industry or what they want to pursue, who's achieved what they want to do or something similar to what they want to do, who can be encouraging them. And then
Mm.
the last and final stage is that they get like a global or international mentor, someone who is like maybe from another country and is giving them a different perspective, because from my own personal experience traveling, I've noticed that my own skills, understanding, knowledge has improved tremendously because
Mm.
I'm exposed to other cultures. So I've
Mm.
reached perspectives, those all that has helped me in pursuing my purpose. So that's
Mm.
why we have those three main programs.
I like it that you meet people where they are. With like you have to meet a youth where they are and deal with them at that perspective,
Yeah.
from that perspective. And then with regards to the mentorship piece, this is where I want to like really focus on a little bit is how do you guys reach out to people? Like in terms of, do you guys reach out to them? Do they reach out to you? How does that work so we can figure out how to help out there?
All right, so with the mentorship, it's
Mm.
mostly people that, so we have a group of people that we reach out to that we know, okay,
Mm-hmm.
maybe someone recommends someone and says, this person would make a great mentor, but we
Mm-hmm.
call for mentors. Like, for example, just this, I think about a week ago, we did a call for mental health counselors, and we got quite a lot of applications, right? So
Mm.
we were going through them, and so we just do a call for mentors, and then we put them in our database. So that's how we usually get mentors. But then there's also in our own network, right? We're in the CSO space. So, for example, I work with Suraya. She might
Mm-hmm.
say she knows a couple of mentors, or both that would be great at being mentors. Or if I have a specific need, like let's say one of the youth has got a specific, niche area that they're looking for, and she knows someone who could be a good mentor for that specific area, then I sort of ask her. And I think, as I mentioned to you, the Mandela Washington Fellowship has got a lot
Mm-hmm.
of these young African leaders, people who have gone.
Mm-hmm.
So I also reach out to that network, but I leave it open to anyone who wants to be a mentor with the
Mm-hmm.
organization, and then we match the skills of that person together with the requirement of the young person. And because of there's a huge rise in obviously sexual harassment issues, we're trying to avoid that from happening as much as possible. So we
Mm.
try to make sure that we avoid ways, like we have a mentorship um, training, right, where we train mentors. We make sure that we do background checks where we can. We want to make sure that we're not exposing a young person to somebody that's going to just do something to them.
Correct.
So we have to do background checks on mentors, and we also have started doing background checks on the young people themselves as well,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes it's not the mentor that's going to give issues; it's the mentee.
It's a
So
mentee.
yeah, so it's good to have that background check to see, what kind of background check background does this person have. We don't want to expose these young people to anything that might cause them harm.
Mm.
And then also we always pair same sex, just because, I mean, we just feel like we just have to take as many precautions as we can, it's not to say that just because we're pairing same sex, there won't be any sexual harassment that can happen within the same, gender or whatever. But it's to just try as much as we can to take precautions. The most important will always be the background check, because that one, it helps us to say, we have done our due diligence as an organization. We ask them to sign some documents, and that they're becoming a part of the mentorship program. We've done our background check. We've tried to make sure that we're pairing them in a way in which we're trying as much as possible to avoid any kind of incidents happening. So those are all things that we have to take. So it's a very time-consuming sort of initiative where we have to have the young people, and we have to have our own team working around that. We are protecting the young people, but we're also protecting the mentors. Yeah.
I think I like that, and I understand why the precautions have been put in place. I think the way in which we're going to really, at least our generation is to be impactful on each other is through exchange and giving information. So I think I like that there's the main. Sometimes it's not always money that's needed. Money is important, but sometimes like information is more important than money sometimes, because of course it helps empower and then helps someone do for themselves as opposed to be dependent. So I think I was going to ask you, how best people can help. So I think one big thing is I think people who want to be mentors could be a big thing, and exchange information, because that information exchange can happen over a month or even longer if it's a good relationship. Is there anything else that people can do to help out what you guys are doing beyond, mentorship? Is it money? Is it, what else do you guys need to be successful in your endeavors?
Well, definitely, like we need, we are focusing on getting funding so that we can do all of our work. So funding is definitely something that's important to us. We need, so for whatever initiatives we do, we're looking at how can we sponsor the activities that we do, because it's time consuming, like for the administrative team that's working with, to make sure that we are keeping track. It's very admin heavy, right? Because we're keeping a lot of documents in place, we're tracking progress, all of that. So the team, getting a full-time team is difficult because we don't have funding. So most of the time they are working part-time because they have to find jobs elsewhere to sustain themselves. So I mean, funding would help us to get a full-time team in place. It would help us with like securing venues for events mostly, and also making sure that we're able to support like because for our work, it's like we do other things within communities. Yeah, so like where we're going to orphanages, because we do a lot of volunteering sort of stuff, where we're going to communities that have been that need books or whatever. So that in itself, most of the times we're asking the young people to either donate what they already have, or or come up with some fundraising initiative, which is not a bad thing, because they do need to learn how to fundraise and work and so forth. But sometimes they're already struggling to make it for the meetings because of transport issues and everything else that's happening. So expecting them again to also find money or fundraising, etc., might be a lot. So I think for the various initiatives that we do, if, for example, we're doing a book drive or we're giving donations, if people want to give books as well, that's great. They can be a part of that. They can help us to add to the resources that we would be collecting at that time.
Okay. And to bring us full circle, to end off here, I think if I look at Zimbabwe, like Zimbabwe is like a story, just like anything. Like it's like a story, and there's many chapters and many writers that make up this great story that is constantly being written on the daily. I think that's at a stage now where, at least my focus is trying to shift that story for the better. But that is only done by empowering people. In that's my perspective. In your perspective, what does shifting the Zimbabwe narrative look like for the future, for now and for the future?
Oh my goodness. I think shifting the Zimbabwean narrative is going to take people accepting that, we're not where we used to be a long time ago. We're living in a different society, different world. And I think when people realize that, then I think we will be more open to, to sharing those stories in a more authentic way. So I feel like there's two parts to it, right? So there's the Zimbabwean story where how have people in general pictured Zimbabweans, right? How do they view Zimbabweans? How do they talk about Zimbabwe? Based on all the things that have been happening in our country, economically, politically, etc. How can we change that narrative? I think when it comes to how we are viewed in general by the outside world, the only way that we can change that narrative is if us as Zimbabweans step up, right, and decide to change that story ourselves, because no one else can change that story for us. So we have to be willing to step out of our comfort zone and not only tell our own stories, like what is happening with the platform you've provided, but to also encourage others to tell their stories, right? So that we get people to see the Zimbabwean narrative in a different way. For people to see, like right now, I'm a Zimbabwean that is working on a leadership team for a US, for an American organization, right? And there are many Zimbabweans who have those kind of amazing stories of what they're doing out there that nobody knows, right? So it's only by us, those who are doing it, by talking about it, and then us also then going and encouraging other people to talk about it, right? To say we need to change the narrative, so let's talk about it. Let's open up and let's talk about how we are making a difference and how, as Zimbabweans, we are these people that are bringing change and so forth to society. So I think that's the one way of looking at it. But then there's also a need for us as Zimbabweans to be willing to break free from an old way of doing things, right? So we need to be ready for change, and we need to be ready for, we need to be willing to go new things, new ways of doing things. Now, if we are not ready to do that, right, it's going to be difficult for us to tell a story that really is going to capture the innovation, the creativity we possess, because we have to be willing to break away from certain stereotypes, way of doing things, way of thinking, for us to be able to, tell those stories. So as a society, we're patriarchal in many ways, right? We have a way of thinking. Because of that, it makes it difficult for any creativity or innovation to be birthed out of the country. And if we change the way we think, the way we approach, then that creativity and innovation can come out way more. Then we can have more stories that are like that to share. And in general, people, they feel like they don't have a story to share, right? Many people feel like, I don't even have a story. Like, what story am I going to talk about?
Whereas everyone has one. Everyone has one.
Yeah, everyone has a story. So I think if we are able to see that your story matters, no matter what you've had to go through, but your story matters. So I think that's how I would approach it. That we as a people, we must be willing to break away from our stereotypes and be open to changing the way we view things. But at the same time, those who are doing things out there, they should tell their stories and encourage others to tell those stories as well.
Tadzie, thank you so much. We'll leave it there. Appreciate your time and all that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
To fanning people's flames. And of course, we'll share this with everyone, but then also see how best we can get involved, whether that's through mentorship. Because a lot of people listen, and the people, I think a lot of the Moment Voices platform is global. And seems to be like this itch. I think there's this thing where when you go abroad, you almost feel more Zimbabwean when you're abroad than when you. And there's this like pull on your spirit to want to connect in some way and help out. It's like this weird dichotomy. When you're local, you're as in tuned in. When you're abroad, you really want to invest a lot more. So I think people listen to
I only started really hearing my Zimbabwean accent when I started working with Americans.
then
That's when I knew,
you're
oh my
like,
goodness, I
hi,
am
is this how I
so
sound?
Zimbabwean. But the good thing is that, I'm proud of it, because I'm
Yes.
I'm here with my Zimbabwean accent, and here I am working with Americans, So it's something that I'm so proud of. But I agree with you, despite all of that, we're making a difference, we're making a change. And we need to be proud of ourselves. That shows that we are very innovative people. We are very hardworking people. And so I think that's something that we're supposed to be proud of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Have a fantastic day. And, we look forward to helping out and being of value to all the work that you're doing.